Looking back on it now, what were the drawbacks and the benefits to making so many shorts? And do you think it was worth it? I know you wanted to make a feature much sooner.
Yeah, I would say that for me personally, it's worked out just fine. I've taken an unusual path. I've taken a very patient path. I wanted to prepare myself as much as possible with all my short films, as I'd mentioned before, and I did that. So I didn't want to get into the director's chair for a feature and blow it. It's hard enough to get that first chance. I didn't want to get there and blow it and never get another chance. So for me, it worked out nicely, but it took 15 years, 15 odd years, whatever it was, 10 years. Whereas other people go, listen, I'm going to go for it from the beginning. And again, some of them make it early. And since they're younger than me, I mean, agencies love hot up and coming talent. So if you're young, mid-20s and you make something really cool, you're going to get more attention than if I make something cool. It's just kind of the way the business, at least the industry out here, is just kind of set up. So I can't say the way I did it is right or wrong or whatnot. I've always been a patient guy. I've always taken my own road to things. So, I think it's been beneficial to me. Obviously, the drawbacks are I'm 40 and I only have what will soon be 2 features under my belt. And if I'd taken a slightly different path, maybe I'd have 10 at this point. But that's a drawback I'm willing to live with. I think I did it the only way that it was ever going to work for me. And it's an interesting question because if you ask 10 other filmmakers what they think of my strategy, they might laugh their heads off for all I know. I don't know. But it's a weird business. Everyone's on their own. You are totally on. You can read as many books on the subject as you want. The reality is no one's going to give you anything. You got to go out there and earn it through talent and hard work, and perseverance, and all those kind of things. And every single filmmaker, myself included, every single filmmaker I've ever met literally has their own fascinating story as to how they got it done, how they got noticed. And some of them might be more successful than others in terms of how far they've risen or what level of movies they're doing now. But all of them just literally found their way through the labyrinthian maze that is Hollywood and have made it wherever they are these days.
Can you recommend any resources for young filmmakers starting out? I know you said everybody has their own path. Are there some resources that have been really valuable for you? In terms of DIY, sort of not learning about film theory or whatever. But
no, sure. No, I understand. I'm sure there's a million books on the subject, and I read many in college that were perfectly fine. Literally in terms of people from a nuts and bolts standpoint, what do I do? How do I start directing at all or whatever? I would recommend just getting on set. Get on as a PA. Get on whatever you can. Get on a lot of sets. Figure out how a set works. You don't have to become an expert at it. You don't have to spend 5 years on the set, but get on the set. Figure it out the world that you're going to be living in and leading at some point as certainly as a director. Know that world, and that is the very seedling to you starting to put together your own world. I would recommend working at places that will teach you what you need to know. If you're not on set, go work at a camera rental house. Learn the gear. If you want to get into writing and producing, work at an agency, work at a management company, work at a production company. I would learn who's in your business. Who do you want to know? There's a lot of assistants out there. Figure out who works for who, network. In terms of gear, become an expert at it. You don't have to become, someone who's paid $1,000 a day to run the gear, but know it from a general standpoint. Know what you need, know what you don't need. If you're writing, I would say one of the best steps you can do is read great screenplays. They're all online these days anyhow. Read The Godfather, read whatever. You can read new scripts, old scripts, read, and then read some more. Figure out what made them great. Then start writing yourself and write. It's probably going to be pretty awful at first. It'll get better until you start to find your own voice. And that's what you do, whether you're learning the gear and pulling it together to start tackling, producing and directing your own short film, or whether you're writing your own scripts. Don't be intimidated by it. Don't be scared by it. You just do it. and then you do it again, and then you do it again and again and again, and keep honing it until you learn what you need to. And I think both will learn along the way, more so than most books can tell you. Learn through experience.
You say that horror sparks conversation?
I think a great story sparks conversation. I think horror can spark certain visceral reactions. I think a great film, my dream as a filmmaker is have one of my scripts or one of my films cause an audience to want to leave the theater and go and talk about it and debate about it and think about it. I don't necessarily want to make the type of movie that they eat their popcorn, they walk away, and by the time they get to their car, they don't even remember what they just saw. Some fun movie or whatever. I think any great story, horror included, is something that will make people talk. And I mentioned privilege before. I do think it's a privilege to be in a position where I can build stories and characters and tell stories that I think aim to make you see the world and your place in it from maybe a different perspective. I think that's a very powerful thing that we do and have the ability to do. And I aspire to do it even better than I do so now. But yeah, in short, I think any great film should spark discussion. I think that's the goal. I think you should be something that inspires you or traumatizes you or scares you or whatever reaction is the point of your story. I think that should always be the point, to get a reaction. Otherwise, your film's just putting people to sleep. You know. So at least that's what I aim for.